There is a shame that has no name. It is not the shame of doing something wrong. It is not the shame of hurting someone. It is quieter than that, heavier than that. It is the shame of not knowing something that everyone around you seems to know. The shame of sitting in a room full of people and feeling like the only one who does not understand. The shame of pretending, day after day, year after year. Some people carry this shame for a lifetime. Winifred Jardine carried it for 68 years, and then one day, quietly and without any announcement, she decided to put it down. What happened next is one of the most powerful things I have ever had the honor of telling. Welcome to Story Studio 91. This is the place where real human stories are told in simple, easy English. Every story here has a lesson. Every lesson has a life inside it. If English is not your first language, please turn on the captions. Every word in this story is chosen to be clear and easy to follow. We are very glad we are here. Now let us begin. Winifred Jardine grew up in a small town in the north of England. She was born in a time when education was not something everyone got equally. When she was young, her family moved often. She missed stretches of school. The letters on the page never quite came together for her the way they seemed to for everyone else. By the time anyone might have noticed and helped, it was too late in the way that things quietly become too late when no one is paying attention. She left school. She got a job. She got married. She had children. Life moved forward the way life does, and Winifred moved with it. Carefully, cleverly. She memorized bus routes by the colors of the signs. She ordered the same meal in restaurants so she never had to read the menu. She asked her husband to read official letters and said her eyes were tired. She helped her children with their homework by listening to them talk through it, rather than looking at the page. She built an entire life around a secret she had never chosen to keep. 68 years? For children. 9 grandchildren. A full, warm, busy life. And not one person who truly knew. Think about what it means to carry something alone. Not a heavy bag, not a physical weight, but a piece of information about yourself that you believe deep down would make people see you differently, would make them think less of you, would change the way they looked at your face when you walked into a room. That weight does not sit on your shoulders. It sits much deeper than that. It sits in the pause before you speak. In the moment you choose the long way around a problem instead of the short way through it. In every small daily decision shaped by the need to keep the secret safe. Winifred carried that weight every single day for 68 years. And here is what is true about a weight like that. It does not get lighter with time. It gets heavier, because every year you carry it is another year of evidence that it is too late to put it down. Another year of proof, or so the mind tells you, that this is just who you are now. This is just your life. But that is not true. That has never been true. And Winifred was about to prove it. It started with a moment at a family dinner. Her granddaughter, who was 7 years old, asked Winifred to read a story to her. She held up a picture book with bright colors and large letters. She looked at her grandmother with total trust. Winifred looked at the book. She felt the old panic rise in her chest. She made an excuse. She said she had left her glasses in the other room. She got up from the table and went to the kitchen. She stood at the sink. She turned on the tap so no one would hear, and she cried. She stood there with the water running, and she thought about all the other times, all the years, all the excuses, and then something shifted inside her. A thought came that had never quite come before. What if I just told someone? She dried her hands. She went back to the table. She sat down beside her granddaughter, and for the first time in 68 years, she told the truth. "I cannot read," she said. "I never learned. I am so sorry." Her granddaughter looked at her for a moment. Then she took Winifred's hand and said, "That is okay, Nan. I will teach you." Winifred laughed, and then she cried again, but differently this time. The next week, she enrolled in an adult literacy class at her local community center. She was the oldest person in the room by 40 years. She sat at a small desk with a pencil and a workbook and felt, for the first time since childhood, like a student. It was not easy. Learning to read as an adult is hard work. The brain must build entirely new pathways. Letters that seemed simple to a child are strange and resistant to someone who has spent decades without them. There were days when Winifred wanted to stop, days when the words blurred and the frustration was too much and she thought about going home and never coming back. But she thought about her granddaughter. She thought about the picture book with the bright colors. She came back. 6 months later, on a Tuesday afternoon in the autumn, Winifred Jardine read her first full sentence entirely on her own. She read it once, then she read it again to make sure. Then she put her hand over her mouth and she laughed and she cried at exactly the same time. Her teacher, who had been sitting beside her, reached over and held her hand. Neither of them said anything for a while. There was nothing that needed to be said. The following Christmas, Winifred chose a book herself from a shelf in a shop. She paid for it. She brought it home. She sat in her chair by the window, and she read the whole thing. Every page, every word. It took her 3 weeks. She said it was the best 3 weeks of her life. Here is what the science tells us about what Winifred did. Neuroscientists have found that the adult brain retains what is called neuroplasticity throughout life. This means the brain never fully loses its ability to change, grow, and form new connections. The idea that you cannot teach an old dog new tricks is not supported by the evidence. Adults can and do learn complex new skills at every age. The process may be slower. It may require more patience, but it is absolutely possible. What stops most people is not biology. It is not age. It is not the brain. It is shame. Shame is the most expensive emotion a person can carry. It costs years. It costs experiences. It costs the version of yourself that you never got to meet because you were too afraid to be honest about where you were. Winifred lost 68 years to shame, but she refused to lose one more day. And from the Tuesday afternoon when she read that first sentence, her world got bigger every single week. She went on to read over 100 books. She started writing letters to her grandchildren by hand. She joined a book club. She gave a talk at her local library about her experience and made 3 women in the audience cry because they recognized themselves in her story. It is never too late. Those are easy words to say. They are much harder to believe when you're the one standing at the edge of something frightening and unfamiliar. But Winifred believed them, and then she proved them. Here is your question for today. What is the one thing you have been telling yourself it is too late to try? Write it in the comments below. Not as an announcement, just as a truth, because the moment you name it, it gets a little smaller and a little more possible. Subscribe to Story Studio 91 for a new true story every week. Simple words, real people, real lessons. This is Story Studio 91. We will see you in the next story.